Hello, everyone. My name is Cody Walters. I am from Winthrop University. I am the Reference and User Services Coordinator. I got that title about 2 months ago, so it feels strange to say. So I have to always kind of remember what it is in my mind. And today, like my title says, I'm going to be talking about what I did as the Information Literacy Coordinator to expand the library out from a single class that we always teach to kind of the whole 3 core classes that we ask all of our freshmen to take. So let's see if it works. Okay, so we're going to start about Winthrop. Also, since it is 2:45 on a Friday, on 2 weeks before the semester gets started, I wanted to add a couple of Pikachus in the bottom right-hand corner because I like them, and that's the only reason. Okay, Winthrop University, it's about 5,000 students. We have bachelor's and graduate degrees. We're a relatively diverse student body, and we're located in Rock Hill, South Carolina, near, near the South Carolina-North Carolina border. Today, what we're going to be talking about is 3 main things. The first one is how to gain traction on information literacy outreach at your campus. So we're going to talk about the things that I have been trying to do to kind of make the library, more in people's faces when it comes to, can we help the classes? Can we help, teach things to students? Integrating into a program. So what are the things that we need to do to differentiate classes so that when I say to someone, hey, I can come into X, Y, and Z and not just X, there's a reason for it. And then this last one is kind of where I excel and where I get most of my traction and why relationships matter and why it's important to try and cultivate those things, not just for business reasons, but for later on down the road, you might say. So some background about where I started with the information literacy program. Where it was when I came in, it was, we were doing plenty of classes per semester, but I would say that we didn't have any initiatives. We didn't have any kind of things pushing us forward. A lot of the reason for that might be we didn't necessarily have an information literacy librarian. Specifically for a while, there were other people doing that job. And so when I came in, the first thing I thought was, how can I outreach to people? How can I, let people understand that the library can help them in a myriad of different ways, right? We don't just go into first-year English classes. We don't just go into, capstone classes. We can help in a lot of different ways. And so I tried to do that first semester. I tried to reach out to a bunch of different people, and I did not get a lot of traction. But where I did get traction was kind of the place I had to get traction, Writing 101. And the reason why I had to get traction in Writing 101 was because all freshmen were supposed to take it. So I had a captured audience. I knew that I had a certain amount of students I was going to get in front of no matter what. So that's where I wanted to kind of focus my efforts and see if there was something I could do to elevate either that class or that program so that people knew, what the library was and what we were about. So like I was saying, impetus for this idea was I wanted to do an additional presentation in Writing 101. I know we all, if you teach any kind of information literacy at a university, about one-shots, right? They're important. We have to do them. But I wanted to be able to get into these Writing 101 classes a second time. Sounded like an impossibility, often very difficult to do. Professors have, a set schedule. And for a class like Writing 101, where the structure of the class had to be rigid because there were so many different people teaching the class, often most of them being adjuncts. So it's kind of hard to, integrate in there and ask for a second time slot. But also, while I was learning about Writing 101, I found out that there were a lot of students that just skipped over it completely because they already had a credit. They took a high school, AP course, and then they didn't have to take Writing 101. So our guaranteed spot where we were going to talk to these students, we didn't even get them there. So depending on their course, depending on their program, they might never see a librarian in the classroom. But before I talk about all that, I wanted to quickly talk about what did not work. And we have this class called ACAD 101, and you may call it University 101. That's what it's normally called. That's what I know it as when I went to University of South Carolina. It's basically, the class that you take that teaches you about the university. And so I figured, obviously, the library would have a spot in that class where I could integrate myself in and not necessarily teach them about our databases, but teach them that librarians are real people, that the library itself is a inviting, friendly place, that we can help them, outside of writing a paper. However, one of the things that I noticed when I came to Winthrop that I was trying to alleviate is, I don't want to say that the library didn't have a lot of social capital on campus, but I will say, compared to other universities that I've been at, the library did not seem as important. I guess you might say, and so that played itself out very clearly when I was talking to the ACAD 101 director, because they basically told me it wasn't going to happen. This is not the they talk about the library for 5 minutes in one class, and we can't change that in any way, shape, or form. And I think the reason why that did not play out differently is, I was new to the university. They didn't know me. They didn't know my capabilities. They didn't know what I was about. They didn't know me. And so I think I didn't have any social capital. I didn't have any inroads with that person to make them think that the library and, in extension, me, was worth the time it would take to kind of change the structure of ACAD 101. And I kind of took that to heart, because I felt like it was an obvious kind of tie-in, and I was proven wrong. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Writing 101 and what it is, what the library does for it, to kind of frame the rest of this talk. So where we started. We teach roughly 40 of these classes a semester to around 800 students. Every Writing 101 class comes to the library for a presentation. This is very important. This is the only place where we are guaranteed a spot in a class. And these are taught mainly maybe 50% by me, maybe 15 to 20, and then the rest of the library faculty teach the remaining ones, along with all the ones that they have to teach. And so this was the place, if I was going to get more integrated, this would be where it would happen. So what I wanted to provide them more information past the classic library instruction, the nuts and bolts mechanics of how to use your library. But I recognized that there was important, but that information is important. I've gone to a lot of conferences. I've seen a lot of webinars where we talk about critical thinking and research and all of these things. And I recognize that they're important, but I also recognize that there are certain things that the students have to learn, such as, what are databases, how to get to them, things like that, so they can complete their assignments. And I'm very cognizant of that. And I don't think I can necessarily give that the time it needs so they learn the skill, and then also do an interesting presentation on critical thinking and research and things like that. So I wanted to get in the class again, do that quote unquote second shot. So what I actually did was that in my first semester here, I spoke to pretty much all of the Writing 101 professors that I taught, to kind of say, hey, I'm teaching your class, but also I want to do more here. Do you want to help me try and do more? Someone that I talked to mentioned that, you know, the class actually had a chair. So there was actually a kind of a committee around Writing 101 since it was such a large class on campus. I met with the Writing 101 chair on multiple occasions, and I just built a rapport with that person. I wasn't necessarily telling them that I had to get into more classes. I was just, you know, getting to know that person, understanding what Writing 101 is, what the challenges of Writing 101 are, what the challenges of trying to change that are. And then after I learned those things, in the spring of that semester, I proposed just like kind of not a demo, but a smaller program where I would only do it maybe 10 to 15 of the 40 classes, right? And she agreed. She thought that would be an okay idea. So I did it. But the thing I learned and the thing I actually gained from doing those extra classes and taking all the time to meet with the Writing 101 professors and figure out a new program is I had an ally in the English department. I had someone I could talk to. I had kind of a champion of the library that I could that could help me go forward with other ideas. I did teach 10 additional classes in those in the Writing 101 section, but when I taught them, I mean, I was happy to be in the classroom again, and I was happy to get in front of them again, but I felt like the information that I was providing them wasn't necessarily what they needed or what I just felt like that wasn't necessarily the right place, even though, you know, I thought it was when I went in there. And then finally, ideas for the future. And those ideas manifested in kind of momentum that I gained from getting the go-ahead, building an ally that would allow me to reach out to those other two core classes. So Writing 101 is the first one. It's what starts everything. But then there's also HMXP 102, which is HMXP stands for Human Experience. It's more about learning how to express yourself, learning about different cultures, different ideologies. And then CRTW, which is Critical Thinking and Writing, which deals with how to think critically about the world, how to think critically when you're writing, how to think critically when you're doing any kind of media literacy. And so I was able to reach out to both of those chairs through kind of the endorsement of the Writing 101 chair to have meetings and to talk about how potentially the things that I was trying to do in Writing 101 with additional classes, I could maybe make a programmatic approach, right? Where instead of seeing us 3 times in Writing 101, maybe you saw us once in Writing 101, you saw us once in HMXP, and you saw us once in CRTW. And what that would, in my mind, do is show that the library is an important facet throughout the process. It's not just a one and done, here's what the library does for you, you know, come and see us when you want to come and see us, but we're important in different facets of your time here at Winthrop. So from those meetings, I did not get a lot of traction out of HMXP at first, but where I did get a lot of traction was CRTW. And I think there are 2 main reasons. The first one is obviously that I had an in because there were people in the department that vouched for me, honestly. And I think, and I'm going to keep coming back to this point, but I think as librarians, we know that if we get in front of people with the information that we have, people will like it, people will realize its importance, but it's getting in front of the people that's the hard part. It's not necessarily, do we have good information to give people? It's, will they give us a chance? At least that's how I felt at my institution. So being able to get in front of the CRTW chair and talking to them about how the information that they teach aligns beautifully with ACRL's core competencies, because critical thinking and writing is custom built for information literacy, media literacy, things like that. And so getting that in was, you know, gave me the opportunity to show what we had available, and that created a connection and allowed me to get into some CRTW classes as well. So what I did for CRTW is I obviously didn't do the same mechanical approach class that I would do in Writing 101. I actually updated a presentation that I saw at LOX. If you've never heard of LOX, it's a fantastic information literacy conference that I don't know necessarily where it's stationed naturally, but I went in 2018 to Minneapolis. And basically the class was about media literacy. It didn't have anything to do with library website resources. It was all about seeing an article online and what are the skills and steps you need to do to identify whether that article is valuable to you, is credible, and whether or not you would need to find something else. And so I did this presentation in both Writing 101 classes and in CRTW classes. It was changed a little bit for the CRTW classes, but for the most part, it was the same. And what I found there is that the discussions and kind of the takeaways were better in the CRTW class. That they were kind of better prepared for the conversations that I wanted to have, because the assignment is designed where you get into groups, you decide whether or not something is credible and reliable and useful, and then you talk to the group about it and we have a discussion. And while, it happened in both classes, the Writing 101 classes just didn't seem as interested in it, and it didn't necessarily align as specifically with their syllabus. And so that gave me the idea that maybe it's okay to have, obviously it's okay to have different presentations, different pieces of information for different classes. And I need to think about that going forward with this kind of overall idea I had. So after I did the CRTW sessions and they went over well, I met with each of those professors to talk to them about whether it was useful, why it was useful, and is this something that they would want to see happen, consistently, because it was basically a trial session. The chair of CRTW told me that, and I understood that. And resoundingly, it was a yes. Like, this was useful information for the students. They felt like it aligned well with their, with their syllabus, with what they needed to teach. So I had, kind of a lot of allies after that. But then COVID happened, which was not necessarily good for any kind of momentum in any kind of situation. I was, I felt like I just got the steam engine going and we were about to, coast off into the sunset. And then it was a huge, COVID was a huge setback for everyone. I think we can all agree. Winthrop was not designed and was not prepared for an online, for any kind of online learning outside of the classes that were already designed for that. A lot of our faculty had a really hard time with the transition. The library, I think, did a decent job at transitioning to more, online reference meetings, building up things for the online sphere. But we were also not necessarily ready for it either. But one thing I will say is, thanks to these meetings that I had and these kind of relationships that I had built with that program, they came to me before I even came to them, and they said, "Hey, we liked that information. How can we build that out for our online students?" Right? And I'll tell you right now, the Writing 101 chair, I'm not trying to say anything bad about her, but she's not necessarily technologically savvy. And so I think having her come and ask me to kind of help her create online tutorials and specifically create something for the library said a lot about the importance of the library to that program and the importance that she laid on what we were trying to do for the students. Also, due to COVID, I was still trying to get into the HMXP class to kind of complete the trifecta, but there wasn't really any kind of buy-in from that for a little bit. But just last semester, right before this summer hit, I was able to get into HMXP classes, thanks to kind of some canvassing that I did with the professors that taught both HMXP and COTW. I said, look what I did for you there. Maybe I can do it in a different way for you here. And what I designed for that class is it's basically a round robin where 4 groups get a different type of resource. So one group might get a Twitter thread, one group might get a journal article, one group might get a blog post. And what your group has to do is you have to debate in tournament style on whether or not your resource is better than the others. And the thing about that I'm trying to point out here is that it's designed for HMXP, right? HMXP is not about writing long papers. It's about talking freely and thinking about ideas and being open to other people's opinions. And so with that kind of thought in mind and their syllabus in front of me, that's how I built this third type of resource that I would use. And like I said, I'm not trying to take up too much of your time, so this is my final slide. This is the main thing I want to get across with this is the importance of meandering meetings. And that sounds bad. People don't necessarily like long meandering meetings. But what I have found in my career is that if I take the time to have a meeting with someone and don't jump to business, there's a real payback in terms of getting their help with a new idea I have, getting their help with a new program I want to start, having them connect me to other faculty that would help me push my ideas forward. So my big takeaway from my 9 years so far is when someone is talking to you and it floats into non-work related topics, be there, listen, chat, and seem like you're interested, because there's a lot to gain from that, and that's kind of where I've built my career, you might say. But yeah, I didn't want to take too much time. I just wanted to talk about kind of the through process that I did, and one of the things I would like to get out of this from anyone that's listening is, have you done this work? Have you tried to connect, a program? Have you gone into multiple classes in a row for like an English program or for maybe early sciences or anything like that? Because I'm trying to see where the library connects and how is it useful in those circumstances. So, thank you.
Are there any questions for Cody? I haven't gotten any so far. Oh, sorry, Cody.
No, I was just going to say, if there are any questions, I would love to have a chat after this about, what your library does that might be similar to this. Do you go into multiple classes? Do you have a through line with your information literacy program, or is it all one shots? And what are the things you're trying to do to mitigate that? Doesn't have to be right here. Obviously, we have like 5 minutes, but my email is watersw@.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
There you go. Yeah, because this is kind of where I'm trying to do some research, and thank you, Mackenzie. This is where I'm trying to do research and see if there's kind of a through line here, because it can be really hard to do assessment on information literacy because throughout a semester, a student sees so many different things, and if you're in there for 45 minutes, how can you assess whether that did anything or not? And I'm hoping with kind of giving them that information 3 times, it might be a way to have a through line to assess whether or not that partnership works or not. So,
oh, Cody, there's actually a question there.
I see it. Office visits, dining with faculty, coffee, or some beverage stronger. What do you find opportunities to meander? I mean, I think my idea here is that if I'm having a meeting with someone and and it turns, I might spend 20 minutes if I have 20 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, not talking about what we need to talk about, but talking about your dogs, or talking about, not the weather, but like things that are specific that you can keep bringing up that show that you understand this person, you care about this person on a more specific level. And that has paid out multiple times for me, as I can call on, Kelly and say, hey, Kelly, can you help me? And she'll want to help me because, we have that rapport.